Here we are, Pat, back for another fun-filled Friday.
Always seems like it's about every other day that we're doing this show.
I know. That's it. It's
Crazy.
time flies when you're having a good time. So we got a little
Hey,
new format. We're calling it the Mick Report.
how'd you
Mac.
come up with that?
Some guy named McMasters told me about it, and
I
now
was like
nobody
McCone,
screws.
McMasters.
Yeah, nobody screws up your last name. You never get bogged down with the silent C, right?
Yeah.
Like mine. So many people call me Mahone, and it's like,
Well, I had trouble first. Remember, like, hey, Rick. It's like Mahone,
I
McConey.
don't. You don't know. You don't go get uh, a burger at McDonald's. And my middle son, he said once, he goes, "Yeah, I struggle with those silent C's myself." And happy Friday, Jaggy. I had a lady that I worked with. Her name was Jackie Sutton, and every time she'd get me on the phone, she was in the transportation department. She'd say, "Is this Rick Mahone?" And I go, "No." She goes, "It's not." I go, "It's Rick McCone." So finally, when I talked to her, I called her Jackie Sutton. She goes, "It's Sutton." I said, "You start getting my name right, I'll start getting your name right." So I just did that. So, wanted to share with everybody. It's the Christmas gift I got my son. He turned me into an action figure. Rick Helps Phoenix. It just kind of broke loose here a minute ago, and has says comes with a microphone, and on the back it says down here on the bottom, Pat sold separately.
So, yeah, because you can't do this as a package deal. It's too unique.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to get some glue. But anyway, so I thought we'd go over some things today, and yeah, Jackie, we're gonna see how that works out. Just have the Mick report. That we got a couple Irish guys here spitting out real estate numbers. And who's been you? Have you been calling me Mahone? I had a lady I worked with. She was one of my managers. Her last name was Smail, Smail. Simple enough, right? But nobody would accept Smail. They would call her Schmail. And the same lady that called Jackie Sutton would call her Schmally. I go, how do you get that out of snail? It's like snail with an M. So anyway, going back to the real estate numbers, we get beat up on YouTube a lot from some people that just say, you guys just want everybody to buy, and you're in denial, and hi, Sean, I'll show you some numbers, what's going on. And Lewis, again, welcome. We're just showing you what the numbers are. So we're not trying to convince you that the market's hot. We're not trying to convince you to buy. There's a couple times you've heard me say, you know what, if you're thinking of selling, I think I'd do it now because it looks favorable for you.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of the industry that we're in YouTube, and people, really like to beat us up, and they say we have an agenda. So when I show you these numbers today, there's a reason, and just so that you can understand the market that we're in and come to your own conclusions. So, because there's some, and when I see clickbait and it's way off base, I'm going to point it out. Yep. And you can agree with it or disagree. But this is my 7-day moving average, where the blue lines are the number of new listings that come on, and the yellow are number of contracts. Now, we've had rates popped up. I want to get to that real quick with you, Pat, but look what's happened in the past few days. New listings have started to decline again, and the number of new contracts have flattened out and declined by about 50. Nothing major, but that's the real numbers that are going on. The other thing I want to point out, if I can get my mouse to cooperate, sometimes it escapes me. This is where we're at in pricing. So we're down below the end of last year. So that's 2021, 425,000. We're 415. So we've come down from here, 475, as far as monthly median sales prices. And we needed to, because it was out of control. Now there's some parts of the valley, like out west, where prices have come down dramatically because they have all that new construction out there. You could call it a crash, but you can call it a major decline, whatever verbiage you want. But if you bought in 2020, 2021, you're still in pretty decent shape. Whether or not these declines continue all depend on interest rates. So the big question is, how much can you afford? So in the comment section, and I don't know if I can pin it to the top here. Let me see if I can. No, I can't. This is a Redfin calculator. How much house can I afford? I believe Zillow's got one kind of like it, but you put in your income here, how much your debt is, and how much cash you can afford for a down payment, and it'll tell you the price that you can afford. So let's say we make 95,000, okay, and we have 500 debts. It says you can afford a 350,000, 57,000 house, and um, I'll put in Gilbert here for the town. And what it does, it shows you what you can get for that price. So it's kind of I thought it was kind of unique. I think they do a better job of that than other people.
Mm-hmm.
And then our contract ratio has actually gone up from 33.5 to 50.1. But this week, and I want to jump to you, Pat, it looks like the wheels are kind of falling off the wagon just a little bit. Greg says, I really enjoy your channel and the work you do here. My wife and I are interested in moving back to Chandler. What proactive steps do you recommend? Greg, I recommend getting pre-qualified, find out what you qualify for, and kind of load your gun a little bit. Chandler's doing well, as you can see by the ticker below their CPI, not their CPI, but their CMI, Cromford Market Index. They're up to 163. So the Chandler market's doing well, not brisk. So you won't be outbid, but get a hold of me or Pat, and we'd be happy to help you. And Pat, what's going on out there?
Yeah, boy, I tell you, it's the chuckle is one of confusion.
Yeah, look
It's
how it
just,
broke through that bottom support line there. I mean, big
yeah, I
time.
tell you, I mean, it's we it's kind of interesting. Um, we had a nice little channel in here with rates, just kind of plugging along. And we saw, like you said, back. This is nice little upward move, and then we channel along here. It's kind of interesting. The last week since the second, it's just been this one of these beat down every day, kind of a beat down. We had a bad day, last week. That was Friday, and then kind of stabilized. And they put on a lock. Barry, this is MBS Highway. They put on a lock. What they do is they try to protect. I use this service to protect people. If you got somebody short term that you're looking to lock, and hey, we're going to do a lock now just to protect your gains or losses. Obviously, Tuesday is going to be the big day with the CPI. But Mortgage News Daily had kind of an interesting article, talked about how it says rates played chicken with the Fed and lost. And it just seems, they kind of said that, in October, we saw rates, hit obviously the highs, and then they basically started backing off. And now it just seems like it is this kind of game of chicken between the Feds and the market of the Fed is like saying, hey, we're gonna sit here for a while and keep rates, even maybe bump them up even further. And you get the market saying, okay, we don't believe you, but now this last couple of days is like the market's kind of like thrown in the towel, like
Yeah, Dave, and there's a
that
lot of things that can
chicken
change
of.
that too, though, right? Because you got I mean, what if the CMI report comes out and it's
I,
improved
I mean,
once again, and then if they revise that new jobs report, maybe things will spring the other way. I think you
yeah,
froze there
yeah,
for
that's
a moment. Yeah.
yeah. I've been freezing a little bit here too. Yeah, that's the thing. That, Barry is saying that the inflation is starting to subside. Um, Once again, it just seems like this game of chicken now. We're kind of past that. Last couple of years it was. Remember, it was recession and inflation. Now we're in this battle back and forth between the Feds and the market. And like you said, right here, I think the market's kind of like thrown in the towel, saying, okay, maybe the Feds aren't going to be as you know um, positive or conducive to what we're thinking in the future. Maybe they are. They're. I think the Feds are just going to sit there tight for a while, and I think it's going to be a lot of this back and forth action this whole, a lot of this year. You know,
Yeah,
there
you didn't get a
doesn't
sense
seem to
that,
be any.
well, you didn't get a sense that they
Hmm?
were going to back off at all, and they're all singing from the same hymn book that they're going to stay there for
Hmm.
a while. To Sean's point, feel that the market's
And the
heating
problem,
up. Sean made the comment here earlier, feel like the market's heating up. The market has kind of raced towards normal when we got down below 6, but we've already seen that when we get in the 6.5 we are now, that it's going to slow down pretty
hmm, yeah.
pretty fast.
I mean, I was talking to my assistant. I was talking to my assistant just a little bit ago, and he goes, Chris, he goes, we were pricing stuff out at 5,996. Now he goes, we're looking at 6.5. He's like, just a couple days ago,
Well, we did
and
get a
that's,
comment from somebody that's out of state, and she said they're under contract and they haven't locked yet. She said, I'm really hoping that the CPI report comes out good on Tuesday so that I get a little bit of relief. So she's pretty much in tune to how this whole thing works. But yeah, we just
yeah.
sit tight. I mean, we
Yeah,
always
hopefully
say,
we
oh,
do on
real estate
Tuesday.
doesn't change in a day, but it does. So,
Yeah, well, sometimes it changes. It seems like it's been changing in a week or two. It's just like, you get rates. That's why I was so hopeful on the fact that rates were kind of at least stabilized in that channel for a while because it's like, oh, like you said, I think the biggest thing when people buy or sell, um, they want to be able to make a decision within 30 or 40 days. And things are so volatile, they're like, I can't make a decision. I'm just going to sit tight, and that's where
yeah,
people
yeah.
create this, it creates this frozen, tight market.
Well, I
So,
wanted to, we get a lot of comments and see a lot on YouTube and people saying, I hope we have 2008 all over again. And, cause that's when I'm buying. So I wanted to kind of take a little walk down memory lane
memory
here.
lane.
And
Oh, God.
yeah, I feel like people want
Or like
lower
a horror
rates. They
story.
won't. Sean, if we got lower, if we got in the fives, the high fives, like 5.75, I don't see prices going up. You get in the low fives, then they'll start increasing, but behind that, there'll be more optimism from sellers. So they'll come back in and it'll be a gentle little normalized market, I think. But I don't see it making a spike in home prices going up. But if we go back to 2008, I pulled some headlines and stuff here. And here's foreclosures account for 47% of the Valley homes in October. And this article here is dated November 14th, 2008.
Hmm.
That's a lot of foreclosures, 47%.
Yeah.
Today, we have only 400 in pre foreclosure. So when you see a headline says it's up 500%, it went from 70 to 409. That is indeed over 500%, but it's not any alarming foreclosures. Remember this, Pat?
Oh, yeah. That was about every house.
This is how they were leaving the market. They were
Yeah.
tearing them up, ripping
They're,
everything out,
I mean, they were
spray
taking
painting.
toilets out. I mean, people that were in foreclosure, they were just ripping. Like I said, that look at that hole in the wall. They were just literally like saying, "Screw you! I'm going out with a bang." I mean,
It
I
was
saw
a
a lot of
sad
homes like
time
that.
in humanity. I mean, you look, they ripped out the ceiling fan. You can see it up top. They
Hmm.
wrote Jessica. I mean, it just they tore everything out. They tore out the fireplace. And this was across the valley, folks. So you're going to wait for price to
Yeah.
go down. You're going to get your house. This is what was available. There it
Yeah.
is. Go
Yeah.
get it.
Yeah.
Check this out. Here's reality, though. The national unemployment rate went from 5% to 10% national. We got hit even harder. I think we got up to like 14%.
Hmm.
GDP declined by 4.3%. Mass layoffs occurring when 50 or more claims for unemployment, 326,000 in the month of February laid off. 3 million households were foreclosed on from 2005 to 2009. 2007, the Dow Jones went down by 50% and the S&P declined by 58%. And Arizona food stamp rolls swell by 28,000 people. So when you get that crash, you know what? You might not have a job.
Yeah.
That was pretty devastating. You would drive around and just see streets that were just, the grass was as tall as your car, and the homes were torn up, businesses were shuttered, and it's an ugly time, and it's a ugly thing to hope for. I think. Do we want
Hmm.
prices to adjust? Of course. Do we want affordability to improve? Yes. Do we want to crash? No. It's ridiculous to hope for that. So
Yeah. Yeah.
bring on the mean comments, but that's where I am. I just think it's just, I don't ever want to live that, and that's the first time I've ever seen a real estate market like that. They say that happens about once every 70 years, so that's the only one I've seen like that. And
Hmm.
it was tough times, and it happened like Lehman Brothers collapsed, and then boom, credit market froze, party over.
Well, I think I told this story about, I know I mentioned it before, but I remember it was like February of 2007. I was getting three people qualified, a boyfriend, girlfriend, and the girlfriend's brothers, three people on the loan. They had a FICO score of like 565 combined,
Yep.
100% financing. And they're 80, doing 80/20, and took it to one investor. And the guy called me and goes, "We shut that program down this afternoon." I ended up calling like 25 other banks within a couple hours. They're like, "Yep, we shut that down. We shut that down. We shut that down." At about 4:30, quarter to five, I called. I can't remember. It was a subsidiary of Merrill Lynch, I think. I can't remember the name. But he goes, "You have to have this file in to me by Monday morning at 8 o'clock, or else you're not won't get approval." I got him approved Monday morning. I drove it over there, hand delivered it Monday morning, and got them approved by midday, or by about middle of the morning, because everything was shutting down. It was just nuts. I saw it literally in my own eyes, and that's
Yeah.
why I
Yeah.
think I've got some credibility as far as what we went through, and you do too, as far as what we see now versus what we saw before.
Well,
You know.
way before the crash in the 90s, I had an employee that was buying a house, and he came into my office, and he was an Italian guy. He goes, "Rick," I'm like, I can't even do his accent, but he says, "Hey, will you put a letter together for me that says I make $65,000 a year?" And I said, "Well, answer me a question." I go, "Do you feel like we get along really well?" He goes, "Yeah." And I said, "Do you feel like we're really close pals?" He goes, "Well," I go, "because if I do that, we're probably going to share a cell." That's called mortgage fraud.
Yeah,
I said, "So
finally.
I don't feel we're that close. I'd rather spend time with my family." And I said, "No, I will not write a letter saying you make 65,000." So
I had a secretary call me up, an administrative assistant call me up, and she says, "I want to get pre-qualified for," it was like a 350, $400,000 house. Her boyfriend had no, the typical no credit loser guy. The girl had the job and everything. She made like $3,000 a month, right? And she wanted to buy this house, and the payment was going to be like $2,500. And I said, I'm not going to write you this loan. I mean, I do not, I won't write a loan if, my license is too important to me. And she said, "Well, you can just do one of those stated loans. Just state my income at, you know, $8,000 a month." I go, I can I can tell you made $1 million a month, but do you make that? Can you afford this? I go home tonight and write down every debt that you've got, every, water bill, electricity, credit cards. She came back the next morning. It was like she had, with the mortgage payment and everything else. She came out. It was like $3,500, and she made only like 3,000. I said, "You can't afford this." I said,
yeah,
"I'm not going to write you this loan." And I'm sure she got the loan written somewhere. I'm sure somebody wrote the loan for her. But me in good conscience was not going to let that loan go out the door. I'm sorry. So
yeah,
I remember that.
it's like showing houses. They go, "Well, you don't want this."
No. Yeah.
I wouldn't sell this to my kids. I'm not selling
Yeah.
it to you. You don't want to. Well, why? All right, follow me. I
Yeah.
I was in one house. I think I told the story. I go, "Look," I go, see that crack in the ceiling?" He goes, "Yeah." I go, follow it down the wall and all the way across the floor. Come with me to the other room and all the way here. This house is splitting in two. The people who are going to buy this are going to scrape it, put
Yeah.
down a new foundation, and start over. He goes, "Well, I've got $100,000." I go, "Great. You can probably patch the floor and replace that electrical panel out back. And by then you're out of money. So
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was very
Well, that's your
interesting.
job. I think your
Yeah.
job is, you're good at that as far as, you know, a lot of agents out there, like they'll tell people to buy, but I think a good agent will say, why shouldn't you, you should not buy this house because of this.
Well,
I mean, that's just,
I like to tell the story, not a story. I just like to say, look, at the end of the day, when you're done moving and you've had the hard day of lifting and packing everything out, and you've put all your boxes in your living room, and you sit down and you and your spouse, you have a glass of wine. I want you to be able to look and go, I'm glad we did this, instead of going, are we sure?
yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah,
sometimes, you'll sit down and you'll look at that crack in the wall and go, I didn't see that.
yeah, yeah,
you know.
exactly.
Hey, Pedro here made a comment on, that you've got all that sun. He actually asked me yesterday if I've done broadcasting or worked in radio before, and I
You definitely
confessed
have a
yes.
face for radio.
I have a face for radio.
Yeah.
I worked. I shouldn't say I worked. I worked at a grocery store and I dabbled at the
I
radio
mean,
station. And when I was 22, and I told Pedro I would share my Seahawks story with them. So they asked me if I wanted to do the Seahawk games on Sundays at the radio station, and the games get patched in, via telephone to broadcast to the radio station. And I lived right across the alley from it. So I said, all right, sure. I go over there and spin a few records and then we put the game on. Now, I didn't know how scripted games are. And this is perfect because Super Bowl's coming up. They give you a clipboard, and this is all planned out before the game. And there are things called network commercials, which are the commercials they play, like Pepsi, Coca-Cola, National, right? And then there's local commercials where Seattle might do Bob's Hardware Store in Ballard, and I'll do the hardware store in Forks. So that means you have to turn off Seattle and then turn on my station and my
mhm,
mic and put in my commercial. So the clipboard has everything on it that says, if they say there's timeout on the field, and it'll say network. So you go, okay, I don't have to touch anything. And so you leave it alone, you let it roll. And then sometimes they'll say, we're going to break for 10-second station ID. And you've got to listen for this stuff. You got to turn the network on, turn it off, and go, you're listening to 1490 KVAC, Forks, Washington, Seattle Seahawks playing the Chicago Bears. Turn yourself off, turn them back on. Then you would have commercials where they would say, we're going to take a 60-second break here, or they'll say we're at the 2-minute mark, and then you have to turn off the network, turn on the local commercials, put your cartridge in. There are 8 tracks, push a button, play 2 or 3 commercials while listening to Seattle to figure out that as soon as they're done being local, you can turn them back on, right?
mhm.
So you had to learn how to talk and listen. So you're listening to them and you're stalling. You're going, you go, oh gosh, they're still going. You're going, listen to Seahawks playing Chicago Bears. The score is, 31-17. You look out the window. It's 50 degrees and raining. Okay, back to the game. When those games were done, Pat, I couldn't tell you what the score was because you had to line out each thing. It was so stressful. And
Sounds like
and you
you had
did
a lot of sounds like you had a lot of trains going through your head like I do.
there were too many trains going through my head. So it was I thought I just put on a pot of coffee and relax, but it was after every game, I just take the headset off and go, oh God. So Grace got another question. There's lots of data coming in regarding the market today. Can you give your future forecast, the market, say 6 to 15 months out? Thanks again. I could, but it wouldn't be worth the napkin I write it on, because it's hard to predict that far out. Even the Cromford market data that we put out, they won't even predict that far. They
Yeah.
will play what if a little bit. So right now we can tell you that it was looking just last week like the spring market was going to be pretty strong. But now with the rates coming up, it looks like that might not be the case. Um, and
I think
to know
15 months
yes,
out.
we are going to do another meetup.
Yeah, definitely. I think 15 months out. I mean, it's all. I'm amazed at how how the elasticity of demand. I mentioned several times of demand of houses with rates are now, because if rates do get into the like you said, if the rates do get into the low fives, you're going to see demand. It's everything's been predicated on rates. You see rates 6.5, 7, demand's going to fall off.
Yeah, if you continue to follow the numbers, you can make a pretty good 90-day decision.
Yeah,
As long as you're staying on top of the inventory and the demand. And
I'd say
like
about
say,
90 days would be the right. I mean, 90 to 120 days, you can kind of, you know, get a feel.
yeah. Speaking of football, sports is now a huge driver of Arizona's economy, said this report. And they're not talking just Super Bowl, which is expected to get $1 billion, but it's saying all the other sports that we have show up here, like this one here is the Fiesta Bowl. They said it found that $24.1 billion was added to the state's gross domestic product in 2022 by the sports and tourism sector. It also impacts hundreds of jobs. Um, so it's that I had no idea that was sports here was that big of a driver to our economy, and it looks really sunny and AC.
Yeah.
Yeah, it.
Oh, yeah. There's a thing called sunscreen that I should use once in a while.
Yeah, yeah. So now Philadelphia was putting Crisco on their light poles to keep people from climbing them after their Super Bowl win. And so this year they're trying to, they've actually got a little spray that they can put on. And they said that they greased the poles because they don't want them climbing all these things. So they said now they're using what they call a biodegradable fluid solution as seemingly a slicker alternative and perhaps a less messy one. It washes off with rain and a hose and it's safe to use. So if you're thinking of climbing a pole in Philadelphia after either a victory or a loss, you're going to have a hard time. So,
Yeah.
and then I bumped into this, and this is so true. The Jetsons predicted our future. Zoom meetings,
Yeah.
online classes, teledoc, FaceTime.
Ain't that the truth? That was how many? That was 50 years ago.
Yeah. Well, the only thing I haven't done is remember their dinner, they would just push a button, a little pill would drop down.
Yeah. 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 Exactly.
Maybe that's my age. You probably didn't even watch the Jetsons. So,
No, I did. No, I watched the Jetsons a lot. No, I was right there.
doom, doom,
So,
doo,
yep.
doom, right? How do I remember that theme song? So, all eyes are going to be on Tuesday.
Yep. It's going to
So,
be, I think we're seeing a chicken, like I said, again, going back and forth to the rates. I mean, we're seeing kind of a chicken. It's getting kind of a weird, just got this vibe here the last couple of days. It's like, yeah, I was reading this article. I'm like, yeah, there is kind of this cat and mouse game with the feds and the market now. So, the feds, I think, they're they're not going to, the market obviously before thought the feds would ease as, we saw some things coming down, but they're like, now I think they're just going to be stubborn and say, no, we're going to stay here for a while.
yeah.
And,
And like I say, they're all singing from the same hymn book because I saw a lot of the Dallas Fed person repeated the same thing. The New York Fed person says, we're staying put. So,
well, if I don't know, Janet Yellen, some of these guys, I mean, as I know, they're academia and I don't know, and the employment numbers. I think reading an article too about how this pandemic, the last couple of years, is really they're focusing on the employment numbers, but I think they're talking about the Phillips. There's called the Phillips curve with the unemployment inflation rate. They're saying that's kind of inversed and kind of jacked up. Everything we're still feeling the effects from that pandemic. There's no doubt about it. So I think they're still struggling with that as far as what to really do. I mean, Econ 101 books are thrown out the door several years ago.
yeah, I put something in the comment section about Open Door in my community tab and said, if they happen to file bankruptcy, because right now their stock's like $1.18, what do you think the court will do with their inventory of houses? Do you think they'll liquidate them? Do you think they'll gradually unload them? Or do you think that they will, Open Door will just reorganize and then start over? And that was kind of the overall sentiment was said that they will reorganize and start over. And they only bought 40 homes last month. And they were
Mm-hmm.
buying between 200, 400 homes a month. they're also becoming even harder to predict when you say, I mean, agents that got in early and looked at their prices could pull open door down dramatically, like right at the get go when they start
Mhm.
dumping them because they were priced through the stratosphere. They price at 585, you could get it for 499. Well, they've pulled their prices way down. It's harder and harder to predict whether or not they'll continue to pull their prices down. And we're trying to do that now on one that ended up back on the market. We said, look, it's been on the market a year. Come to me with a number that's going to impress us because, we'd like to do this deal, but not anywhere close to that price. Well, they don't want to give it away. It's been a year. It might be time to rethink that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's been
I'm
a stubborn
still
listing.
waiting for a response. I haven't seen it yesterday after our conversation. So they're getting harder and harder to predict, but they've turned into I sellers now and not I buyers. So well,
Yeah.
let's take a look at Tuesday, Pat, and have a good
It's gonna be
weekend
interesting.
and try not
I,
to
I
get any more done.
yeah, I'm gonna stay low. I'm gonna go into a dark room like Aaron Rodgers. I'm gonna go dark for the next 4 days. So
Okay.
maybe I'll just close everything and just put shades in my house and everything. And it's a Green Bay Packer thing. You go dark just to find myself again.
Well,
So
you
you
could
hear
show
about
up
that?
on Monday and all of a sudden be very appealing.
Yeah.
Get it?
Did you see that? He's gonna go. He's gonna go in this dark room for like four
Yeah.
days. Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe
Yeah.
I should take his advice. So
I don't know.
anyway, we'll
I
see
think
what
he's been
happens.
hit in the head too many times.
Yeah, no kidding. We'll see what happens Tuesday. I'm hoping that we get a little relief. Like you said, rates have been kind of sticky on the upward range, but you know, we'll see what happens on Tuesday. I mean, I think Tuesday will give us it'll give us some type of guidance going here because if we do see a decline, now we got kind of a trend that we've been
Yeah.
seeing
Yeah.
the last couple of months. So, and maybe that will be the one that, like I said, this market's been playing chicken between the Fed and the markets. Maybe, maybe eventually the Feds will say, okay, we're doing our job. I think they will stay the course for a while, and then the market starts reading in, 6 to 8 months down the road. So that's where you might see rates backing off again. So, all
Well,
righty.
we'll see what happens. Have a good weekend, everybody.
Yep. Take care, everybody. Bye bye.